if you're the type of person that does a little bit of adventure, like you decide to go travel some country by yourself, you'll notice that it just allows you to see the world in a different light. Hey everybody, Dan here. Today I want to talk about the biggest decision I ever made in my life. Like the one thing that I did at a young age that I think had the biggest impact long-term, okay? One of those exponential decisions, and that is my decision to move out west as a 20-year-old. And I'll share with you the funny story, because I was living in my hometown of Moncton, New Brunswick, Canada, small town on the east coast of New Brunswick up in Canada. And there was always this desire to do more, to see more. And I just never felt like I was going to accomplish this living in that town, even though like I've now come to realize there's multi-billion-dollar companies that have been built out of my little province in Canada. For whatever reason, I always had a desire to move. And I ended up working at this one company. The only job I've ever had, true job, J-O-B, was working for this company, which at the time, they were considered the best company to work for. They were called OAO Technologies. And I was making $60,000 a year as a 20-year-old, which was a ton of money back then. I'm not that old, but it was a lot of money. It was my first job. And literally my dad thought like, wow, like my son went from getting in trouble with the law, drug addict, rehab, to teaching himself to code, getting a job, making 60 grand a year, and working at one of the top companies in town. And after 9 months, I remember I decided I got to get going. I got to move. And I quit my job. And I called my dad and I said, hey, Dad, I just got to let you know that I quit my job. And the phone just went silent. And he just says, it's probably the worst decision you've ever made. Now, you got to remember, like, I came from getting in trouble, going to jail, all these things. And I'm thinking, really, Dad? Like, this is the thing. Out of all the stuff I've ever done growing up, you're telling me, lighting off fireworks inside of the house, all that, you're saying this is the worst decision I ever made? I was like, okay, Dad's just upset. I'm still going. I'm going to make the move. And it was scary because like, I really wanted my family support. I really wanted people to support me. And even in spite of all that, quitting my job, almost getting fired the next day, that's for another day. I decided to pack up my 1987 Volkswagen Jetta with all my belongings. Literally, I didn't have a whole lot. So I packed up my car and I left. And what happened for me is there was a bunch of opportunities, okay? I was moving out west. I didn't even know what city I was going to land in, but I had a bunch of different job offers, some in Calgary, some in Vancouver, but I just wanted to go to the big city. I wanted to move. I wanted to be in the mountains. And along the way, I left New Brunswick September 7th, 2001. And along the way, September 11th happened. And all of a sudden, all the opportunities I'd ever had just dried up. And when I look back at that journey, the struggles I went through, I closed my line of credit back home so that I was being financially prudent. I'd saved, $5,000. None of that lasted very long. And it was tough. I literally was running out of money month over month over month. All the opportunities were gone. There was no contract work. There was no employment opportunities. There was nothing. And there was one of the biggest blessings that came out of the time that followed that allowed me to capitalize and fund my company, Spheric Technologies. None of that would have happened if I didn't go through that process. And I want to share with you like the lessons that I learned that allowed that time of my life to be one of the biggest blessings. The first one is the belief that the world rewards courageous decisions. I truly believe that. I look at my life moving out west to, all these things that have happened, walking away from an earnout when I was building my company, Flowtown. We exited that company and I eventually still got the earnout. Like all these crazy things. So I wanted to go build this other company, Clarity. All happened because I was willing to make a courageous decision in other people's minds. Even the fact when I moved out west, the first job I ended up getting was working as a contractor at Syncrude. Two things from that job that most people don't realize is one, they weren't hiring full time. So I had to become a contractor. So I started my first 987-739 Alberta Limited. I forget what the corporate number was, but that was the first company incorporation. Even though I had Maritime Vacation and MB Host prior to that, I never incorporated those businesses, right? I just like started them with my brother. I never, but this one, 969-735 Alberta Limited, right? Started, I don't like that made it official. I had gotten an accountant. I started a business. And I learned enterprise portals. I learned Plumtree software. I learned the technology, even though I had been taught it prior. I got 2 years of experience working with some incredible people, deploying at one of the top oil companies in the world. And that experience laid the foundation for the business that became Spheric Technologies, 3 years later. And I would have never learned those things if I didn't take that decision to try to find the courage to go against what my dad believed in and everybody else and my friends to move out there with no expectations, no understanding what my life was going to look like. And it was such an important lesson that's continued to play out in my life. The other one is ask for help. I see every day people struggle in their lives, and many of them, 95%, forget to ask for help. And I learned a lesson as a 20-year-old when I moved out west, when I ran out of money and I couldn't afford to pay rent anymore and I needed a place to live. I would reach out. My buddy Dan Hansen let me sleep on his couch. For weeks, he let me sleep on his couch. I felt so embarrassed. I had a great job. I had money saved up. I thought I was making all the right financial decisions. And here I was at a point where if I didn't have a place to sleep, and it kind of one of those things where you like, hey man, I'm in town. Can I stay at your place? Yeah, no problem. I think he knew it was more than just a Thursday night place to sleep, Friday night. It's the weekend now. Let's hang out. He never kicked me out on Monday. It turned into a few weeks. Like, I'll never forget how generous he was to allow me the space to try to like find opportunities. And that, I think that's a big reason why today I've always opened up my doors for everybody. It's just part of who we are as a family. It's what I do. Cause I always remember like I was that person back in the day and I just needed somebody to give me a chance, to give me more time to see if any of these crazy ideas would work out. And I just think like the idea of asking for help. A lot of people are scared too. They're worried that the person's going to say no. They're worried that they're going to come off as a mooch, or you're going to come off as somebody that's taking advantage of the situation. And what I've discovered is that if you're a good person, people want to help you. I know that's true for me. I meet a lot of incredible people and I want to go out of my way to help them because I know that if the roles were reversed, they would do the same. And those are the kind of people you want to support. So make sure you ask for help. If you're struggling right now, you're going through a tough time, and you haven't leaned into some of your friends because you don't want to be a burden of them or be troublesome, I'm telling you, you got to ask for help. And then the last thing is that adventure is rewarded. Here's what I mean by that. It's one of our core values as a family. Okay. Our core values, there's 5 of them, but one of them is adventure. And what I've realized is that the more adventure I go on, the more adventure shows up. It's rewarded. It's almost like an investment that compounds, right? And if you're the type of person that does a little bit of adventure, like you decide to go travel some country by yourself, you'll notice that it just allows you to see the world in a different light. And when I think of like moving out west and building that knowledge, then I went to Australia and I spent almost a year by myself in Australia. And then I decided to start a company. And that was a crazy adventure. And I built that and had an incredible outcome. 3rd time, it took me 3 tries to finally be successful in business. And I exited that company and it transformed my life. But then I moved to San Francisco. And I think of like, even the idea of like going from Canada, that Canada to out west, same country, pretty straightforward. It sounds like a little thing today, but like even moving from New Brunswick to San Francisco, I didn't know a soul. I didn't have a friend. I wasn't going anywhere. I luckily had some money, but it was lonely. It was tough. It was scary. But again, adventure is rewarded. And to me, when I look again, this through line of my life, it continued to the point where like, even in the last year, deciding to take the family and move our whole lives to the other part of the world, right? And just that decision to go on adventure and see all of the incredible things that have come into my life, from the businesses I've started to the businesses I've invested in to the people I've met. Literally, one of my good buddies, Nico, new friend in the last year, asked me the other day, he said, who's who's one of the most impactful people you've met in the last year? Because he sees the group of people I've built in this new city in Kelowna, BC. And I thought of it, and like, he's on that list. Nico's on that list. And there's a handful of others. Betty, who takes care of our house, is on that list. She's an incredible soul. And like, literally, I'm like reflecting back the people that had the biggest impact on my life in the last 12 months, people I didn't know 12 months prior. And to me, I just feel like they've been part of my life forever. But the only reason they showed up in my life is because I was called to adventure, and adventure is rewarded. So anytime, somebody asks me to do something that feels a little kind of like outside of the norm, I always have to give myself a second kind of glance to my answer and ask, like, am I being adventurous? It's, again, why it's one of our core values as a family. So I just want to share those, because the philosophy I have around making courageous decisions and asking for help and that adventure is reward is the idea of not listening to your parents. And that might sound crazy. Maybe you're a parent. I apologize if this comes off the wrong way. But the truth is your love for your child will never give them the freedom to make the decision that they probably should make, because you don't want to see them hurt. You don't want to see them stumble. You don't want to see them make a bad decision. But what I believe in is we got to allow our children to take risk in a safe environment. And what I've discovered for myself and for my kids is there's so many times where they're behaving risky in a safe way that it's easy for me to want to stop it, but I know I got to let them do it. And if you have one of your kids come to you and ask you if they should make a decision that sounds on the surface kind of crazy for you because you didn't do it, but I want you to ask yourself, like, if the roles were reversed, would I have wished I've done that in my life? Is that an area of potential regret? I know my family's from this town, but like, would I have wished that I at least tried or gone to explore more or whatever it is, and make sure that you give that guidance to your child. Because the truth is, the reason I say don't listen to your parents is because your parents don't want to see you hurt. So you have to find mentors, people who have done things in life to give you a completely different perspective. Because if you don't, then don't be surprised in 25 years if you wake up and you're living the same life your parents lived, because all the big decisions on where you should live and what school you should go to, et cetera, were based on their filter, and they're giving you the advice that got them their outcomes. And that's the big idea. Not listening to your parents, even though I love my dad and I love my mom, and my dad is my hero and my mom is my best friend. I also realized that one of the biggest moves I ever did in life was not listening to them and following the call to adventure. So I wanted to share that with you. It's a big, important part of my life and a story, and some big lessons I've taken away from that. I hope it might serve you in making those courageous decisions, because the world will reward you for it. So I hope this finds you incredibly well. And as per usual, I want to challenge you to live a bigger life and a bigger business, both of those in parallel. And I'll see you next Monday.